Welcome to Discourse Politics, everybody. Today we are going to go over some people on the left's calls for a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. For those of you who don't know what Truth and Reconciliation Commission was, it was what they used in South Africa to basically try and bring the country back together after apartheid. And what apartheid was, it was segregation on steroids. And what it basically was you had several people who were in power, particularly white people. And what those white people would do is they would commit heinous and absolutely heinous human rights violations on individuals. And what the Truth and Reconciliation Committee did was it allowed people that were victims of these individuals to face their accusers. So what you have is you have individuals that would accuse these individuals of shocking them in their unspeakable regions. It would talk about different types of methods where they would tie their hands behind their backs and put wet bags over their heads. And it was for all these people who were suffering human rights violations to bring at least a little bit of justice to the people that brought this upon them. Compare that to the left today. So you're telling me that you want a Truth and Reconciliation Commission because Donald Trump was president for the past 4 years? You know, the left talks a lot about people who are overprivileged, and I have to hand it to them. I think that when they talk about privilege, I think they're projecting a little bit. And here's how. I think that life has become so cush in the United States that if you're a news anchor on MSNBC, that someone owes you an apology because Donald Trump had the audacity to be president for 4 years, and 65 million Americans in 2016 decided to vote for him, and 71 or 72 million Americans decided to vote for him again in 2020. For you, that requires you to get an apology from someone. It wasn't just Chris Hayes from MSNBC calling for Truth and Reconciliation Commission. You had people like Robert Reich. He was the Department of Labor Secretary under the Clinton administration, the one that actually happened, not the one that didn't happen. But nonetheless, you have that. And you have other people with blue check marks, a lot of blue check marks, calling for truth and reconciliation. Here's my question. Would it help if we just decided to go ahead and have free mental health care for any individual who thinks that they're owed an apology because Donald Trump was president for the last 4 years? Because here's the truth. If your lifestyle is such that the idea that almost half of the voting population would vote for somebody who, they believed would make America great again, and who believed in energy, growing the energy sector, and who believed in putting America first, and who believed in making trade deals that were more beneficial to the working class than the globalists that have been president and in power for, the last 30 years. The fact that you think you were owed an apology because people voted for someone like that says everything I need to know about how much privilege you have thinking that you are owed an apology for that. The Truth and Reconciliation Commission was brought about to talk about heinous crimes against humanity. It's not for you to get an apology because you didn't like the way people voted. It is absolutely absurd. Any sane, logical, rational thinking would not realize how absolutely privileged and, dare I say, racist it is for them to basically say that what happened to the people of South Africa is similar to the cush lifestyle that I'm living in the United States, that I deserve an apology from people who supported the Orange Man, just like the people of South Africa deserved their day when they could face their torturers and basically say to them, you tortured me and I want people to know what happened. They're literally putting themselves on par with these individuals. And it's absolutely ridiculous. So getting back to what I said, I think we should give free mental health to anybody who thinks they deserve a Truth and Reconciliation Committee. And, we could start off by giving them a map of the United States and say, point on the map to where Donald Trump touched you. We could let them talk it out with a therapist, how the last 4 years has been detrimental to their way of life and how, their trust in mankind is at an all-time low, and that these torturous idiots who had the audacity to vote for Donald Trump and how much those people affected your life. I think you should talk it out with a therapist, and not because you're correct, but because you're absolutely batshit crazy. And the idea that these kind of things can be said without retribution, by the way, is sort of the reason why I think alternative media is more important now than ever, because this is just absolutely absurd that someone would make this case. Just one more time, let's try and wrap our heads around this. People of South Africa during apartheid were tortured. Their human rights that they were born with naturally were violated. They were beaten, they were killed, they had things stuck in them where they shouldn't have been. They had things shocking them where they shouldn't have been. They had all kinds of things done to them against what their natural human rights were. And these individuals, in order to heal the country, were given a chance to say, this is what you did to me, this is how it affected my life, and I want people to recognize your face and that this is what you did to me, and it's tied directly to your face. There's no hiding it. You were a torturer, you were a human rights violator, you are the person that I'm describing, okay? And now people in the media in the United States think we need the same thing in the United States, to point out to Trump supporters that you foist Donald Trump upon us, and therefore you have things you need to apologize for. I can't wrap my head around this. I'm trying. Can someone please help me? Can someone in the description below please help me wrap my head around that how naively arrogant you would have to be in order to put yourself in the position of a South African during apartheid and somehow claim that that's what's happening in the United States, and the only way to move forward is if we have a Truth and Reconciliation Commission. How absolutely absurd that is. I cannot for the life of me think of how absolutely skewed my view would have to be that a duly elected president that didn't do anything outside the realm of what was being done by past presidents, and even if, for example, the closest you could get was kids in cages, right? And then you could ask the question, who built the cages, Joe? But nonetheless, kids in cages, right? Here's the issue with the southern border. People were using children to come across. And previous administrations, some of them had let people cross with children, and when they had children, they were allowed to be released into the United States. So people knew that, and as a tactic, they started bringing children with them, whether they were their own or not. Now, the question becomes what were these children to these people? So if you stop giving essential amnesty for people who were coming over the border with children, then the question is, how do you separate the fact that a lot of these children, their DNA does not match the people that they're coming over the border with? Now, there's many reasons for that. Were the coyotes bringing them over? And with, coyotes, not the animal. I know there was a bunch of people on the left who thought coyotes meant the animal, but not the animal. Coyotes is the slang term for people who you pay to bring you over the border through safe passages, through passages they know, and through ways that they know how to bring people into the United States. So there's cases in which coyotes were paying parents for children so that they could use these children as nothing more than get out of jail free cards, which ended when the Trump administration refused to extend that executive authority to basically give blanket amnesty to somebody who had a child. And then the problem is since these children were not with their parents, their biological parents, now what do? They weren't even with somebody who was biologically their relative. So the situation is this. What were these children doing? Were they being used as get out of jail free cards? Were they being used as child trafficking? Were they being used as were they being used for human trafficking purposes? And the truth is when you separated these kids from these adults, and I'm not going to say parents, oftentimes, like I said, these kids, their DNA does not match the adult they came over with. It's not even a distant relative. So what do you do at that point? Do you give this kid back to some random adult that is actually not related to the child? Do you, in some cases, try and find the actual adults of these children or the actual parents of these children or relatives of these children, which they've tried to do? And the reason I'm bringing this up is because, the number 500 and some children, one is too many, right? I don't like the idea of parentless or adultless children being stuck in cages at the southern border. But the reality of the situation is if you have people who are using that as a get out of jail free card, you have to sort of figure out a way to do something differently. And did the Trump administration make a mistake? Maybe. I don't know. Did they make a mistake in not giving blanket amnesty for people with children? I don't know. Because that means that these 500 and some children that don't DNA match the adult they were with, maybe they were being human trafficked. We don't know. So maybe them being in a cage is actually better than them being human trafficked into the United States, or being human trafficked away from their parents. We don't know. But I'm not saying that to obfuscate. I'm saying that because in the end, we really don't know what the situation is with these children, right? So given the situation that is on the southern border, that is the closest anyone can get to saying that Donald Trump committed some sort of huge human rights violation. 500 and some children who weren't with their parents, who now can't be located with their parents, is some sort of huge human rights violation on the scale of Truth and Reconciliation Commission, of the torture and of the human rights violations of South Africa. Give me a break. At the end of the day, there's absolutely nothing you can do or say that would make me think that you are thinking logically and rationally to say that people who voted for Donald Trump, people who supported Donald Trump, people who worked in the Donald Trump administration are deserving to be brought forward and questioned in the case of Truth and Reconciliation Commission, because you have to air out your grievances, right? That is just absolutely patently absurd. So that's what I have to say on the matter. Here in the next couple of videos, I'll also be talking about the list that's going around for the AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, where she called for a list of people who supported the Donald Trump administration. And poof, there's one that basically has appeared. It's somebody who, is a prominent Democrat, basically making a list of people so that they can no longer be hired because they had the audacity to support the president. So that'll be coming up in the next couple videos. Along with, the legal cases that the president is pushing forward in each of the states as he contests the election results and the alleged voter fraud. So stay tuned for that. And thank you for watching. Hit like and subscribe, and I will see you next video.